All right, it looks like we're live, and I'm just going to minimize this for a second. You should be able to see this if you go to my YouTube channel to check it out for yourself. If, by the way, it looks like it's off or whatever, my YouTube channel is YouTube / and my last name, first initial last name, so T and Siopoulos. I know it's kind of hard to see, and my last name is not the easiest to spell. And I'm telling you, in school it was really challenging. They called me Tommy Silly Octopus, Tommy ABC, Tommy Alphabet. They call me all kinds of stuff. Not easy to pronounce. I'm a Greek guy, so bear with it. But you might curse my name later on. Who knows, right? Anyways, if you go to the site, what you will see is under, and this is as me, if I go as a returning subscriber or something like that, you're going to see something like this that comes up that says COMP1002, Lesson 1, Part 1, and it's going to say Live Now, okay? So check that out. That's one thing you will see, all right? Now that means that when I broadcast, and some of you might say something like this. You might say, well, can I stay home, right? I mean, if you're going to broadcast the lecture and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, I like to have my coffee in bed, right? Do I have to come into class, right? And the truth is, you can certainly watch this lecture from home. There's, for the most part, I'm going to broadcast everything anyway. But the advantage of being here is we're going to be doing in-class exercises, and there's other things that I'm going to be asking you to do that's going to kind of require you to be, physically here, right? So the great thing for you to do is use this, the YouTube stuff that I'm doing as a complement to the course material, right? It's going to be recorded. There's your own playlist that I've kind of developed. I'm going to show you my playlist in a second. So let's look at all the different playlists. I got a bunch of them from different courses I do here at Georgia and at the other college I work at. And you can certainly go through. I probably have something like 400 videos now. Now it's taken time to get that way, and there's been some trial and error. But I'll tell you right now, I'm probably one of the only professors in the college that does this kind of stuff. I've been pushing, like I said, I'm a proponent to get this done, right? So I'm pushing other professors like Rich. I don't know if you guys know Rich Freeman. He's one of the guys. I was talking to Scott yesterday, the coordinator, and trying to get him into it too. And the reason for it is, and there's always a discussion around this, is, hey, but then the students won't come in. The students won't, be in class. It's up to you guys, right? I mean, it's part of the agreement we make when we get together in class is that I deliver the content as best and interactive as I can, and then you do the work so that you learn what needs to be learned, right? So it's up to you how you want to consume the content. Myself, what I want to do is kind of provide alternate means of you having access to that content, because I'm a digital guy, right? I'm not going to ever give you a written test. It's never going to happen. Right? You're going to do everything online, if at all. Any assignments are going to be all up on Blackboard and all that kind of stuff. And that's how I believe you should get them, right? Okay, so just a little bit about me. And by the way, there's advantages and disadvantages about doing what I'm doing. It does put a little bit of a strain on my system. So again, I would ask you, please bear with me. All right. So let's talk about the course a little bit. We'll go over the outline or the syllabus for the beginning, and then we'll flash right into some of the content I developed. Got a busy morning, and every week, as you'll notice, as we go through this, you'll see that there's all kinds of stuff we're going to be taking in. There's a lot of stuff to cover in the 14 weeks we're together, and it really just starts today. Okay, so we're together Fridays 8 to 11 in this room. Again, this is a special room designated by the college for BYOD, your own device. There is a book that is required for this course. It's HTML5 and CSS3 Visual Kickstart Guide, Quick Start Guide. I like calling it the Kickstart Guide. It's not a bad book from Peach Press. There's definitely electronic versions you can buy as well. And you'll notice I might bring the book up as well, and it'll say part of Tom's library. It's not an expensive book at all. So, I mean, I think I spent 30 bucks on it or something like that. It's worth the buy. I mean, it's good material. I think it kind of, kind of puts things together for you. From a reference perspective, it's good. And when we do there's going to be tests that we're going to do together that are going to be both multiple choice and practical, and it's a good reference for you to use. If you've never done web before, and then, by the way, hands, who's ever done any kind of HTML5? And so you might think you're an expert, and that's okay. And we're going to go do, when we say fundamentals, I'm talking about fundamentals in this course. So you're going to have to bear with me when we start doing this. I'm going to assume you know nothing, all right? And the reason for this is because I want to kind of, you know, fill in the holes in the knowledge that you have and kind of share with you the stuff that I know. Apart from working here in the other college, I also have a team of students that I hire every semester to do various projects. So I have my own little side business that I run as well. I have various clients that we do projects, everything from single-page sites to e-commerce, and I get students, you know, to work with me. Why? It's a great opportunity for students to do the work, and for you, this is a big interview, right? Not just for me, because I'm looking at you and seeing who the best of the best is, but also it's a great opportunity for you to show me your stuff. Right? So, and it's not just me, I have other colleagues that I always refer students to as well to get them work. Okay, so I'm going to try and share with you the stuff that I know. I might even bring in a speaker or two, people from my team to kind of talk to you about how to do certain things. We'll see how it goes and what kind of time is allowed by the course. There are, I believe, 3 other sections of this course run by Scott. And Scott is a very hands-on guy. He's got I would say probably one of the best teachers in the school. I can't say anything about that. That's for sure. One thing I should mention is he's a prop guy. He brings props in to explain some of the stuff he does, and I admire him a lot when it comes to that. It's me. I'm Tom. I'm not Scott. So bear with me. I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna teach you. I'm a programmer from a mindset perspective. That's what I do. Like I said, I do a lot of HTML5 games, 2D, 3D. Whatever. So that's where my thinking is coming from. I also have a strong design sense, but I'm not a designer, right? So when I talk to you guys, I'm talking to you about, you know, how the web is going to be formed, the programming side. From a JavaScript perspective, if you want to talk JavaScript, which is probably the most important language on the web these days, right? I would say I'm a TypeScript person. I'm a person who is an ambassador of TypeScript. If you want to know what TypeScript is, you can certainly look it up. It's probably the better way to do JavaScript these days. From an enterprise level perspective, you can produce enterprise level applications with TypeScript and JavaScript. So I'm going to try and share a lot of this stuff with you. I just don't have a lot of time to do it all. And we're talking about web fundamentals, which limits our scope a little bit. All right, so let's talk about evaluation and the way we do things in the class. So again, when it says in-class exercises, I kind of see these as labs. We're going to do one today, right? It's worth 2% of your final mark, right? Every time we do an exercise. They're scattered, these in-class exercises, throughout the time we're together. So various sessions are going to have a lab that you're going to be asked to do that's due by the end of class. Okay, 10% of your mark for that. 4 assignments are going to be handed out. 1 I'm going to give you today that's due in a couple weeks, right? By week 3, in fact. They're all worth 10%, equally marked. And there's a final project that's going to be due that's worth 25% of your mark. So if you notice, this class is assignment or project heavy in terms of the way we evaluate you, right? All the assignments and projects are individual, so you'll be asked to do this on your own. I don't believe there's anything here that is for you and a partner to learn or to do together. Okay. There's also a couple of tests, and they're called tests, not exams, because they're not heavily weighted. They're only 12.5% each, right? Again, they're probably going to be a mix of practical and theoretical. So you might have some multiple choice true false, that part on Blackboard, and you might have another piece that you're going to ask to do something in class that day for the test, right? The way we do that, and the reason why we do that is because it kind of tests both things, you know, your theory and your how good are you hands-on to get things done. All right, so that's really it in a nutshell for what we're looking for how we're going to evaluate you. And then from a lesson plan perspective, I kind of follow the book. Okay, so let me bring up this book. So you can see what it looks like. Again, I've got my digital copy that I bought alongside with my physical copy. So let's take a look at this. So it's this book here, HTML and CSS, you know, the Visual Quick Start Guide. See, myself, I study with digital books. That's the way I do it. But you might be a physical book person, and I fully support both ways of doing things. I do it this way because it's easier for me to zoom in on what I need to get into. And sometimes what I do when I study for something, if I want to learn something new, I kind of have two screens up. I have like my digital book on my left, and then I'm doing something on my right, so I can do my tutorial or whatever I'm going to do. So this works for me. For you, it may not work that way. Maybe you're someone who highlights things, or you don't use a book. Maybe it's that as well. You don't have to buy it if you don't want to. It's required. But I'm going to be following this pretty much from chapter to chapter. And when I go through the weeks, if you look through on the syllabus here, and by the way, the syllabus is up on Blackboard as well as the outline, you'll see that I follow chapter 1, chapter 2. There's a couple of changes here. So, for example, on week 2, next week, we're going to go chapter 3 and 21 and so on, and we're going to jump around a little bit. So, and the syllabus, not only does it tell us what we're learning, in terms of how we're going to kind of get the content to us, but also where our assignments are due. And you can see that assignment 1 that I'm going to give you today is going to be due in a few weeks. Now, one thing that I'm going to try and do is stick to the syllabus as best as possible. I'm going to try and pace or keep pace with Scott. I kind of call him Great Scott because, you know, keeping pace with him is hard, right? He's, like I said, he pushes us to produce, you know, at a fairly good pace. So, I mean, there might be a change here or there in terms of maybe some content that I'm going to deliver a little bit more, a little earlier or a little later. But at the end of the day, when we hit week 7 for your exam, you should have the exact same content as the other classes. That said, the stuff I'm going to deliver, like I said, is slightly different because I'm not Scott. I'm Tom, right? So I'm going to give you my stuff from my perspective, from my experience, right? So as you can see, we start off with the building blocks of the web, work into different aspects of it, text, forms, images, links, and finally we get into, on the back end, CSS, which is probably the most difficult piece of learning web design and development. And the reason why I think that is because CSS is kind of the most hated piece of learning web development, right? You do a CSS, you're like, couldn't this be more organized? Doesn't this really suck? How come we have to format things this way? And people don't quite understand it. It's not as intuitive as we'd all like. And of course, there's helper programs out there that'll assist us in doing CSS better. But at the end of the day, this is the biggest problem that web developers have, CSS. Okay, I can teach you all what you want about HTML, even about JavaScript, but CSS is the core. If you learn CSS, if you're a good CSS person, your websites are going to stand out. Okay, so that's where you really have to focus. And we're not going to get to that until week 8, not 100% anyway. And again, we're going to continue with CSS, excuse me, as we go with formatting. When it says formatting and layout, that's all CSS. And then we get to lists and how we do lists. And probably in there, we're going to do some things or in abouts with navigation, how we do web navigation on the page and so on. And then probably one of the most important lessons, although it's later in the course, is lesson 12, which would be building responsive web pages. Because in today's I don't know, web, if you will, I mean, it's really about the mobile device, right? I mean, we're moving away from desktop and going here, right? So a lot of our users now that we make websites. I mean, one of the user stories we have is it's going to be a mobile user story, right? I'm going to walk and I want to consume the content from the website on my phone, right, or on my tablet, right, or who knows? Maybe tomorrow it's going to be in my eye, right? But whatever it's going to be, right? The user story isn't always about the desktop, right? So we have to, our websites, our designs, they have to be responsive. They have to reflow into a different viewport scenario, right? And the way that can happen is if we design it from the get-go as a responsive web page or series of web pages. We're going to add JavaScript at the end. When I say add JavaScript, I mean it's really going to scratch the surface here. JavaScript is, kind of deserves its own course, right? Here at Georgian, we do have kind of client-side scripting, which is really, really good. And you'll be taking that later on. But I mean, like I said, JavaScript is probably the heart of the web right now. It's the hottest language probably going. Probably hotter than C# or C++ or any of the other hardcore languages. Why? Because it's so pervasive, right? There's JavaScript everywhere. And now with Node.js and the whole mean stack, full stack, if you guys have heard of that before, that allows us to write JavaScript both on the client side and on the server side and in the database, so you have JavaScript throughout, right? So that's kind of the most emerging technology, the one we use today. And my team, when we program websites, we use the mean stack, and we kind of shy away from PHP nowadays, right? Not because PHP is bad, although I'll be honest with you, I don't like it anymore, right? But PHP is old, right? And we're kind of moving into this new world where everything is JavaScript. Probably the Internet of Things is going to be JavaScript, everything JavaScript, right? So I would say the next important thing after CSS, when you learn HTML5, the structure and semantics, and then CSS, the layout and styles, is JavaScript. So after this course, if you're going to do any kind of learning on your own, and some of the stuff we do as developers and designers is self-learning, self-teaching, our own little tutorials and so on, learn JavaScript. I think it's going to be a worthwhile pursuit. Okay, so we've got all that schedule for the course. We've got a pretty good plan for what's happening for these next 14 weeks. Okay, any questions around this stuff or concerns? Anything you'd like to learn that I haven't covered here? So this is the stuff. I mean, it seems like some of it's basic, and if you guys are HTML5 superheroes already, right? Then you might say, "Whoa, could I not take this course? It seems like a pretty basic course." Every time I learn something new, even if it's something that I already know, I always pick up something different from different professors. We were having a conversation with Scott yesterday about this course. He taught me something new. It's like there's always something, little things. It doesn't matter how many years in the business you're in. There's always something new, because why? Things change so rapidly on the web all the time. Like today, we're talking about HTML5 and CSS3. HTML6 is around the corner, right? That whole standard or groups of standards that are coming, right? We're working with JavaScript. We're moving into ES6, ECMAScript 6, which is the new standard for JavaScript that we're moving away from the old standard, right? Browsers are changing, systems are changing. We've just adopted, for the most part, a lot of us have adopted Windows 10, right? With the hopes that Edge would be better. I don't think it's better, right? But we'll talk about that in a bit. But that's just the way things move on. So there's always things to learn, and one of the most challenging things I would say in my world, right, is that every 3 months I'm learning something new that's coming out, whether it's a new version of Node.js or, would you mind grabbing that door? Just gently for me. Thanks, man. Otherwise, I think we're going to just be bombarded by carts coming outside the door, right? Anyways, but there's always something new that's coming out, right? I always sit there and I say, can I not know everything? And it's impossible. I don't think there's ever a time that I felt stable or comfortable with what I know on the web. It's just impossible. It doesn't matter whatever. Everything is changing. Everything from the type of browser you're using to the type of text editor or IDE you need to use, the methodology that you're using, different processes and workflows. Everything keeps changing on the web, and that's the most challenging piece about being a web developer. And I think if you don't know that already, you'll know it soon. Right? Some of us, we're used to working with IDEs, and then tomorrow we're going to work on the command line. The command line is quickly becoming something that most designer developers are needing to do more often. And that's going to be something that's going to challenge you and push you, because who's comfortable with command line in the room? Anybody? Yeah, I thought so. Command line is where you're going to go, and it's not going to happen today because we're starting off in a kind of a basic course, but we're going to get there, and we need to get there because there's so many piece parts to the whole user experience scenario. You know, we provide user experiences. That's what we do with HTML5 or building web design and putting things on the internet. That's what we do. We provide user stories and user scenarios, good user experiences. That's where we want to go. I want to make a website. I want to make it performant. I want to make it so that people like it, right? It's not just about the function, but also the form, right? So there's many piece parts to it all. There's also a project management piece. Like, how do I, when I sell a website to somebody, how do I do that? Like, how can I make a proposal document for somebody based on what they're looking for? So there's many, many parts to this whole picture. Not just from a how we do things, but from a business aspect. And I'm going to cover some of this design business a little bit, because you need to know if this is what you want to get into, if this aspect, then we need to kind of discuss those kind of things and how to prepare yourselves for that. All right. Any questions around this stuff? So again, I'm not sure if you guys are looking at the YouTube thing, if it's broadcasting. Yeah? No? I don't know what it is. But if it does broadcast, what it's supposed to do under this live event is when I'm done, right, it's supposed to pop this up on YouTube inside our playlist right away, right? So it's a one and done scenario. By the way, that means that I'm not going to do any editing. I'm not in the business of doing post-production work, okay? So I'm not going to do the video, and if I say something wrong, like, you know, or if someone asks a question, it's going to be up there, right? So these videos are for you, right? They're not for me. They're for you, so you can consume them, so you can go through and go, you know what? I want to look at that syllabus again, and I don't want to hear Tom's chatter, right? I'm going to go to that special place. I want to see what he did there from a code perspective. Going to go there and zoom in and you know, all that kind of stuff. That's what it's for. So again, it's an extra piece of content for you. All right, so that's it for this part. I'm going to stop recording now, and then we'll start the next piece.